Hey, Kevin here from DIYDork.com. Today I want to show you how I built my really simple little work table. Now I kept the design really easy to build. I kept it fairly lightweight so that you can carry around by yourself, but it's heavy duty enough to do some real work on it. It's on casters so it rolls smooth, and it even has a removable top which comes in really handy. So anyway, check this out. Like I said, it's easy to build and it's really awesome. Alright, so today I'm going to work on the tabletop. Here's a rough idea of what I plan for it to look like. And I got the old floorboards here, the dark ones, and then this one right here is the piece of plywood in the middle that's a little bit wider. And of course this is the bottom side that has the crack. I'm actually going to flip it over. And just need to do a little finish work on these before I join them. Obviously I need to cut the plywood down, sand it because it's going to be a little rough. And a couple of these floorboards are a little bit long. So I have to trim them down by 1/4 inch or so. But I plan to join them with my pocket hole kit from my little Kreg jig. And almost exactly like building a frame, you drill in the pocket holes on a couple of boards and then add a little glue and you screw them together and become nice and tight. You just got to make sure that, like, you know, they don't bow like that. So I have to make sure to clamp them and weigh them down as I'm doing it. But it should turn out pretty cool. Now I'm not crazy about the old finish on these boards. It's I don't know, just don't really care for the color. So I'm going to sand them. They're probably still going to remain a little bit dark, at least compared to this middle piece, which I think will look really cool. And should be pretty awesome. Although they do have a lot of texture, which is really cool. So most of that should stay. And I do know it's just pine. It's probably not the best surface for a work table, but it should turn out pretty cool. Especially for the way I'm going to use it. Like I said, I'm not going to be pounding on it with a sledgehammer, but just to, you know, clamp something or glue something or paint something or whatever, it should be fine. Oh, and one more thing I should mention is that the layout I did is, let me show you here real quick. What I decided to do was to let everything overhang 2.5 inches. So it'll be 2.5 inches from the two short ends and 2.5 inches from the two long ends. And I know it's a bit much on a work table, but the reason I'm doing it is so I can fit clamps. I was thinking ahead, and you can see how there's plenty of room for it to clamp, and I just think that would be extra handy. So anyway, instead of me rambling on here anymore, I should get started. So first thing I'm going to do is take these out and trim them to size, make sure they're all exactly the same length, and then I'll sand them, and then I'll show you how I join them. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and measure all my boards and make sure that they are all cut at exactly the same length. Alright, so now all of my tabletop boards are chopped down to the same length. So I want to sand them, mostly to get rid of the ugly color, but also to smooth them out just a little bit. And then also they have like some frayed pieces from when I was chopping them on the saw, so I just want to smooth it out. So I'm just going to use my palm sander. I went ahead and threw a 120 grit on there. I figure that's rough enough to take off the finish, but smooth enough that I won't have to go over it with anything else, especially for a work table. It doesn't have to be that smooth, so I'll go ahead and sand them up. Now check that out. That is a really, really cool color there. Some of the texture still pops through, but it doesn't have that gold color anymore. So this should look really, really cool once it's all put together. Alright, and check them out. I got them all cut to the same length. I got them all sanded. And look at that incredible battle-scarred patina popping through. Very, very cool. I like this. Now I was considering putting a finish on there, you know, some poly or some lacquer or something like that, but I decided against it. I'm gonna keep it raw. That way if it gets like paint spatter on it or stains or chips or gouges or whatever, I can just sand it again later if I wanted. So no big deal. Plus it's a worktop. I think it's kind of cool to keep it raw. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take it in because it's freezing out here, and I'm going to join all of them to make one solid piece. Alright, so I brought all of my tabletop pieces back inside. I laid them on top of my work table, and then I flipped them upside down, so you're looking at the back side of them right now. And I'm going to get ready to go ahead and join them, and I'm going to use my little Kreg jig here that makes pocket holes. Now, if you didn't see earlier, pocket holes look like this. It's basically a hole, a little pocket. Makes sense, right? You get these little screws, and then they go in and they sink in there, and then you never see the screw, and they hold nice and tight. Now I'm just going to do a single pocket hole, and I decided to go ahead and measure out, since my piece is 48 inches. I decided I'm going to put one here at 24, and I'm going to put one at 12, and then over here towards the edge I went 2 inches in at 2 inches. And then the same thing over here on this side, I went at 36 inches and then 2 inches in. So that should be 5 pocket holes and screws holding this board to this next one. Now before I join them, I'll also add some glue in there, so it should be a nice strong bond. And then I'll do the same thing on the next board and then the next board. So each one will have pocket screws that hold it to the next board. And along with the glue, it should be pretty strong. So I'll go ahead and show you how I do it. It should be pretty simple. Okay, so I went ahead, I took my little pocket drill guide here, and it may be kind of hard to see, but I set it at the 3/4 inch setting because my wood is only 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I'm only going to drill one hole, so I'm just going to line up the center of this one hole right here to my mark I made earlier. Alright, butt it up against that, and then I'm going to clamp it down nice and tight so it don't move on me. Alright, and then I also took the Kreg drill bit and I set it to the 3/4 inch setting, and there's a little guide inside the box that will show you how to do that as well. Alright, so now it's time to drill. Real simple, just stick it in there and set your drill to high speed and then go for it. I like to kind of hold down on this too so it don't move on me too much. Alright, here we go. Alright, so unclamp it, and I'll show you what it looks like. There we go, one pocket hole ready to screw in to the next board. So now I'll just go ahead and finish them all out, and then I'll show you how I actually join them with the screws and the glue. So now that all my pocket holes are drilled, I can go ahead and start gluing and screwing it together. So I went ahead and just threw my screws in real quick so it's easy to get to later if I need to add glue. So I'll just add a strip of glue onto the board that I'm going to be joining to. And then once I have that glue on there, just squish them together. Also going to make sure that my ends are perfectly flush right here. Alright. Now normally you could use some big pipe clamps to clamp them in this way, but I don't have any big enough. As a matter of fact, mine only goes this wide. That's the biggest one I got. So what I decided to do was cheat a little bit. So I'm just going to clamp here on the end just to hold that nice and tight. And then I also am going to throw a weight on over here. So I have a kettlebell that I'm going to throw right here onto one of my supports. So that should keep these two joints nice and tight. So what I'm going to do is work from the end and just work all the way to the other, because I think my boards, they could be slightly separated like that. So once I start screwing them in like that, they should close together like that. So the Kreg kit also comes with this little 6-inch square bit drive for these screws. This is an 1 1/4 inch long screw that works with the 3/4 inch thick wood, so I'll drive it in real quick. Okay, there we go, nice and tight. And now I'll just move on to the others, and I'll show you what this piece looks like all screwed together. And then I will show you what the entire thing looks like when it's all screwed together. Alright, so now that I got it all screwed together, I flipped it over. You can see a little bit of glue squirted out there, the crack, so I will wipe it clean with a damp rag here, and then I will let it dry. I'll go ahead and join the others, and then let them all dry for probably a couple hours, just make sure it's nice and solid. And then I'll show you how I attach a couple little blocks underneath to hold this thing in place so it don't slip off the tabletop, but still makes it nice and easy to remove, so I can move it in between rooms or carry it upstairs, whatever. So I'll show that to you next. Alright, and here's the tabletop all glued and screwed together. Turned out pretty sweet. It's just a couple of things I need to do before I work on it. And one thing is that I need to go over this spot right here, and right here. And those are spots where one board is just a little higher than one next to it, so there's a little bit of a step up. Now if this was a super nice piece of furniture, I'd run a planer over it, smooth it out, but I don't have a planer, and it's just a work tabletop, so I'm not too concerned. So I'll probably just run my sander over it and just smooth it out a little bit. And then the other thing is that these corners, I realized just how sharp they are a while ago when I bumped into it, so I don't want to be doing that anymore. So what I did is I took my pencil and this coin that apparently is from Rwanda. I have no idea when I got that. But anyway, I just traced right around it just to smooth it out. So I'll just cut that out. Probably just sand it smooth just a little bit. And it should be ready to go. So then all I have to do is add the blocks on the bottom that will be attached permanently to the bottom of the tabletop, and then they will help align it to the frame. So when I set it down, it'll be exactly in position. Then I can easily take the tabletop off, and then I can push the frame through a doorway or carry it upstairs, and then assemble the tabletop back on it and use it wherever I need to. Alright, so now the tabletop is ready to go. So I flipped everything upside down and I laid my frame onto the tabletop. The very first thing I did was I made sure it was on there spaced evenly. So my tabletop, if you remember earlier, I said it was going to be a 2.5 inch overhang. So I'm making sure that there's 2.5 inches showing everywhere. It's evenly spaced. And now that I'm good, I'm going to use my little blocks. Now my blocks here, I don't think I showed earlier, but there's just some scrap wood I had. Anything would work. These are, I think, cut-offs of some 2x4s from another project. So yeah, there's the 1.5. And then they are only inch thick. Anything would work. This is a pretty good size, so I think they're about 10 inches long. And it's real simple. All I'm going to do is take a little bit of wood glue, and I'm going to put some on the bottom there, and then I'm going to just kind of butt this up against the frame here, and then use my screws to screw it down just to help the, the glue will hold really strong, but the screws will just add a little extra security. And since this is 1 inch thick and my tabletop is 3/4, I'm only going to use 1.5 inch screws so they don't poke through the top. So that's it. So I have these 3 in, so I'll go ahead and put this one in, and then I'll show you what the whole thing looks like when it's all done. Alright, there we go. I'll flip it over and show you what it looks like all finished. Alright, so here is the table frame all put together. I'll show you how nice it spins. Those rollerblade style casters make it roll really nice and smooth. And I think they said they'll hold up like 200 pounds, which should be plenty for the type of use that I'll be using this for. Also the finish, that silver paint that I then sanded for the distressed look, I think it's kind of cool. This kind of gives it a little character, something fun to look at instead of just plain 2x4s or, painted whatever. It's just kind of interesting. I like that look. And then, like I said, I made it lightweight so I could carry it by myself upstairs or outside or whatever. And I would say it probably weighs, I don't know, 15 pounds, something like that. It's not very heavy at all. And one of the ways I kept it lightweight was with just the single stretcher bar here in the middle. But I feel like eventually I'm probably going to want a shelf. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple ways to do that. You could move this stretcher bar out to the inside of these legs that rest on top of that little leg support, and then build another one over on this side, and then you'll have a shelf that's the full width of the inside of the legs here. The other thing, the way I'm probably going to do it, is just build another stretcher bar and then just put it on the inside of this leg, and then I'll have a shelf that's half the width. And then I'll have leg room over here, and all my spare parts can, lay on this half of the shelf, and then the main project can be on the top. So also, real quick, let me show you how the tabletop goes on. It's super simple. All right, now that the tabletop is screwed and glued together, and then I have my little brackets on there, it's super simple. So all you got to do is lay it on top of the table and wait for it to drop into place. Just position it, and then there we go. Check this out. Step on the table, and it is not going to move at all on you, but then it easily lifts right off if you need to. And another cool thing, I built the tabletop's only 3/4 inch thick. I think it would be the perfect thickness for, sanding a project or screwing something on or whatever. But if I wanted it a little heavier duty, I could build the top exactly like this 2x. Instead of 1x6s, it could be 2x6s, and it'd be a little bit thicker, a little heavier duty. And I built it the same way so that it comes off real easy like that. So anyway, really, really cool project. Very versatile, tons of storage room under here that you could hang tools, build multiple shelves, whatever you want. And it looks really cool, so I'm gonna get a ton of use out of this thing, and I'll be using it in my videos coming up.